Hey, happy Halloween, I think. You know what Shane said to me a minute ago? I can't even tell you what he said to me. I'm shocked. I'm horrified. Hurt my feelings. Throw you under the bus, Shane. Right off the cliff, buddy. Hey, 540-0580. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here. Weekend Appointment, the show where we answer your legal questions. Want to get the word out. I was on Bob Durgan's show earlier this week, pushing out some information. I'm going to do it right off the bat here, and I'll repeat it later in the show. Pennsylvania Supreme Court on the 23rd of October overturned the DUI sentencing law in so much as the lower courts had been applying it for the last several years. It started in a few of the county courts where judges took the position that if you had two DUIs pending at the same time, one was a first offense and one was a second offense, or one would be a second offense, one would be a third offense, depending on whatever grading would apply. But basically, they would handle them sequentially. For all the world before that, all the years I could think of, we always handled them as two first offenses or two second offenses or two third offenses, not sequentially, which is important because that changes the grading and the penalties that apply. And it has to do with what we call recidivism. And the lower court started to apply it that way. Some refused to, but the state superior court went out on a limb and just said, oh, no, this is what it says. We defense lawyers disagreed with that. If you read the statute, the plain language was pretty clear. It said it goes this way except CB. And, of course, B says, no, they're both first offenses, basically, or they're both second offenses, at least the way any rational lawyer would have read it. Well, the state Supreme Court said basically what the lawyers have been saying, which is it is not a second or subsequent offense. It is the same number of offenses. So you have two DUIs pending, folks. They're both first offenses. It's not a first and a second. Well, what's important about that is a second offense DUI with a BAC over 1.6 and most third offenses or subsequent offenses will cost you your gun rights. They'll also put you on a tail of probation that's much longer. So you have 60 days. If you're one of those folks, you have 60 days from October 23rd to get a petition into the court because of the change in the law, and you can remedy that. So if you know somebody who had multiple DUIs in the last few years, get them with a lawyer or have them contact me, have them go to weekendappointment.com, whatever you need to do, because we're on a time schedule here. Now, we're trying to look for ways to raise it over a longer period of time, but we know we have an absolute safe harbor within 60 days to do it, and that's why we're recommending it. 540-0580, 540-0580. I want to talk about the change in the DUI law or any other legal matter. Call in. William, you're on WHP 580.
Yes, sir. I was telling you a call screener. I listened to Mr. Durgan's program yesterday, and a guy called in to talk about how owning a gun is a right under the Constitution, but driving is a privilege offered by the state.
Okay.
But why are the laws about misuse of guns that kill people harder than they are for people that drive drunk and kill people?
Well, what we're talking about here is what grade of offense disables you to own a firearm. And so if you have a second offense DUI and your BAC is above a .16, which is half of all second offense DUIs, it's a misdemeanor of the first degree. And because it carries the possibility of more than 2 years in jail, it affects your gun rights. That's how that comes to be. Nobody attaches the gun laws to your DUI. That's a completely separate question.
I mean, it was a separate question. I was dealing why are the gun laws harder on people than what the drunk driving laws are? Right,
and the reason is the gun laws are harder because of that magic federal requirement that if it's a state law misdemeanor, it can't carry more than the possibility of 2 years in jail. So it's just the way it is. But here's the point. This is why I warn people. I know a lot of people, let's say you had a DUI and 9.5 years later you get a second DUI. And, you think, well, I goofed up. I'm just going to go in and plead guilty and serve my time. If you're a hunter or a shooter, you got to be mindful that you're giving up your gun rights by simply pleading guilty. A lot of times when I go to the district attorney, I say, listen, my guy's a big hunter. He wants to take his 12-year-old hunting next week. Can we resolve this by pleading it to a slightly, he's not going to not be punished. He's not going to not lose his driver's license, but let's change it into an M2 so he doesn't lose his gun rights. And a lot of district attorneys will say that's reasonable.
Okay.
All right, William?
Okay, yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if I have a great answer for William there. I mean, why? It is what it is. I can't change it. 540-0580. That's the talk line number. Call in if you have a legal question. Of course, go to weekendappointment.com. Become a registered user, and through the month of November, we're going to have a big giveaway coming up here. But you have to be a registered user, and I'll be giving you more details on that later in the show. Kathy, you're on WHP 580.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. A question for you, please. If someone defaulted on a personal loan,
Okay.
can the owner of the loan, the financial institution, sue people that they use as personal references, not co-signers, just references?
Well, only if they somehow engaged in fraud.
Okay.
I mean, in other words, if the not the co-signer, but the reference, like let's say you put me down as a reference, and I know you don't have $2 to your name, and I get on the phone and I'm like, oh yeah, he drives a Ferrari and he's got bucks and owns all kinds of things, and I vouch for him. Maybe I committed a fraud there, but if they were never contacted or never said anything that was untrue, I'm not sure how. Because what did they do to become a personal reference? Somebody just listed you.
Right. If somebody just listed me, and actually I was never even called, but the person that took out the personal loan, they had to list 3 personal references. It was a small loan. I understand that. They had to list 3 references. And I have no problem even that my name was, I don't. It's fine.
Is somebody threatening you?
Yeah. I have this collection group. I think they're out of Chicago from the area code. And of course they say they're calling from a law office, but
right.
And they're saying that not only are they going to sue the person that took out the loan, but they're going to sue their references as well.
Well,
I never signed a loan. I never spoke to anybody about it.
No, that is
a scare tactic.
That is a scare tactic, and they're going to try to get you to put pressure on this person. They're going to try to get you to agree to assume some of the debt. They're going to do something. But what they're doing is fraudulent. They are lying to you through and through. And you might want to report them to the state attorney general's office.
Well, actually, I gone on the FTC. I Googled their phone number, and there were a lot of complaints against it.
Yeah.
Similar, so.
Yeah, I would complain to the attorney general's office with that, because that's a wholly fraudulent claim on their behalf.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, go get them.
Okay. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right, take care. 540-0580. Darlene, you're on WHP 580.
Hello?
Yes, what's going on?
Okay. My husband had a loan with the Department of Agriculture about 10 years ago. This was before we were married.
Okay.
He had a home with his ex-wife, and they went through a divorce. And apparently there was a short sale, and neither of them paid on the loan.
Okay.
So he received a notice.
What are you building? Are you building something in the background there?
No, that.
Go ahead, Darlene. Keep talking.
Sorry. That was a dog. So he received a notice in the mail, notice of intent to initiate administrative wages.
Okay.
Garnishment proceedings. And the amount of the debt is $7,600.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a statute of limitations at all?
There probably is, but I don't know. It may have been reduced to a judgment, it sounds like. But you can say there was just a short sale. So I don't know if he agreed to some kind of entry of a judgment or whether they're just going after him. So what I would tell you is to get in with a lawyer, and you might want to think about a bankruptcy lawyer, not because you need to file bankruptcy, but because they're used to handling how to shield you from a debtor, or how to shield a debtor from a creditor without having to even go bankrupt. Plus, a bankruptcy attorney's letterhead's often good to open the negotiation channels with a potential creditor.
All right, but before they garnish your wages, do they have a hearing, or can they just do it without?
Well, garnishment of wages as a general rule is not allowed in Pennsylvania. But you're saying this was with somebody like a governmental agency?
Right.
Yeah, which is what creates the problem, because they probably have a federal power of garnishment. And so that's outside my realm of expertise.
Okay.
All right. So, Darlene, get with an attorney. We have a bankruptcy attorney in my office. Otherwise, hit the phone book, hit the internet. Go to weekendappointment.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll find post a question for legal match. They might be able to help you as well. But I need you to see a bankruptcy attorney, okay?
Okay.
All right. Good luck with that.
All right. Thanks.
No, that's okay. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. 540-0580, 540-0580. Show where we answer your legal questions. I'm attorney Carl Rominger. I practice throughout the mid-state here. Getting ready to go into a bunch of jury trials. York County, Cumberland County, Lancaster County. I think all three counties want me, which I guess it's okay to be wanted in three counties when they're looking for you to try a case, just as long as they're not going to try you. But, oh, Shane. No, but all seriousness, getting ready for a busy couple weeks, potentially. We'll see what happens. A lot of times cases resolve themselves as it gets closer and closer to trial. But remember, throughout the week, to go to weekendappointment.com where you can answer, or I can answer your questions if you put them up there. I have one I wanted to take. Somebody here says they basically have a 4-foot fence, and the neighbor kids like to come over it, and they don't have a big problem with it, but the kids do jump the fence to grab balls and things like that, and they're about to put a pool up, and they're worried about liability. And the answer is yes, folks. You have a pool in your backyard. It's an attractive nuisance. And the other thing is, if you put a pool up, make sure because it's an attractive nuisance, you got to check your codes and make sure your fence is high enough with the code regulations of your township. But yeah, you should have a fence that the kids can't get over, because if one of them drowns in the pool, you have liability. And of course, the fact that you're well aware of the fact that the kids are already crossing the fence is going to make it really hard for you to claim, I didn't know, even though that's probably not going to be a defense. So, yes, if you have a pool, make sure your fence is adequate to keep the kids out, or don't put the pool in. Also, make sure your homeowner's insurance is paid up, because they will provide you with some protection. They may also have certain requirements about a pool as well. There are regulations that a lot of townships have. You should check with your insurance agent to be sure. And, yeah, just common sense. If the kids are already coming over the fence, be worried. And that was a question from weekendappointment.com. Remember, you can post there throughout the week. Talk line number is 540-0580. Ron, you're on WHP 580. Ron.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello. I have a question. I signed a contract with a large communications firm, for some internet type of monitoring and
All right.
and so on. And I signed it on a Wednesday afternoon, about almost 5 o'clock. And then Saturday I rethought it, and I sent them an email saying, that I wanted to cancel the contract.
Okay.
And they're taking the position that, the contract cannot be canceled, and I'm responsible for the entire year of about $850 a month. And I'm just wondering what the legalities of that is.
Was this a business-to-business type contract, or are you a consumer of some kind of product for that kind of?
It was business to business.
Okay. Generally, in business-to-business contracts, there's no automatic right of rescission or 3-day right of rescission. So if you've done things like refinanced a house before on a refi loan, you've noticed that they can't make disbursement for 3 days and they give you the right to rescind notifications.
Right.
In the business-to-business world, there generally is no right to rescind a contract once entered into. That makes sense?
That makes sense. Not what I wanted to hear, but it makes sense,
Generally. Now, if you can find a reason to get out of the contract, or you want to look through the fine print and see what's in there, sometimes that's a good way to go.
Right.
Otherwise, make the most of the product, I guess.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right.
I appreciate it.
No problem. You notice I asked that question. Is this business to business or business to consumer? Folks, whenever you open up your own little business or, Carl's Flower Shop, whatever we want to call it, I start signing contracts. As a rule, I'm no longer a consumer. I'm now a sophisticated businessman, according to the courts, even though I probably am not. That legal fiction fills in, and I'm no longer entitled to the same protections that consumers are. And sometimes we see that consumers get really good protection, basically not being held to the things they do bargain for. Liz, you're on WHP 580.
Hello. I'd like to ask a question about grandparental rights.
Okay.
If someone hasn't seen a child or contacted them or anything for approximately 2 weeks, what rights do I have if that person just walks in and wants to pick them up and take them if I don't have any legal papers or anything yet?
Well, the answer is that person, if they're the parent of the child, has absolute right to walk out with that child, and you can't stop them.
Okay.
So you would need to assert a grandparent's custody action,
Right.
You have standing for visitation under certain circumstances, but you also have standing for full custody if certain other prerequisites are there, including acting in the place of the parent for a long period of time.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much.
All right, Liz, don't do anything rash.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Just because somebody leaves their kid with you and you're a relative doesn't mean it becomes your child without paperwork. Now, to come back 3 years later, technically, it's still their child. So you need to do some stuff in the meantime. Matt, you're on WHP 580. My talk line number is 540-0580.
Good afternoon, Carl. I have a question for you regarding enforcement of a lease. I'm a tenant in an apartment complex. It's made up of several buildings that have 4 apartments in each building. One of my neighbors in one of the apartments is violating multiple terms of the lease. I've complained to the landlord, and the landlord refuses to do anything about it. Now, is there anything I can do to force them to take action against that other tenant?
No, but you might be able to break your lease.
Okay.
In other words, their failure to make the place habitable or otherwise reasonable place to live violates their duty to you. You have a right of quiet enjoyment, and you have a right of that it be warranty of habitability, we call it. So, if you can color your claim in that direction, you can basically say, by failing to remedy the problems with the other tenants, they've abridged my ability of quiet enjoyment and my warranty of habitability, and therefore I'm entitled to break the lease.
Okay.
All right?
Well, my problem with that is I don't want to leave. I just want to make the other person, because it's a really good deal and it's a really good area.
Right.
I just want to make the other person, conform to the lease.
Right. And that's the hard part, because the landlord can be obstinate and say, I don't really care, I'm not enforcing the lease. But that might create a problem for you. And so that's where you could try to get out. But like I say, if you want to stay, that's the problem, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Best way I could think of to handle that. Usually one tenant does not have a direct right to complain about the other tenants breaching the lease, because that's the landlord's right there in what we call privity. But basically what I'm saying is when the landlord chooses to allow that other tenant to breach the lease in a way that interferes with your quiet enjoyment or makes it uninhabitable otherwise, you could get out of it. Let's see here. Gary, you're on WHP 580.
Hello?
Gary.
Yes, hi. My problem exists with a Sony, large screen television I bought back in 2004, 2005. I'm not exactly sure. They replaced a large component of it called the optical block, and that failed again. And I basically have the same problem. Now, I'm not alone with this issue. Basically, everyone that has bought a Sony TV between 2004 and I believe it's 2007 pretty much has similar or the same issues.
Okay.
And there's a lot of frustration out there. And, I'm sitting with this TV in my garage right now because it's basically unwatchable. And I bet there's a lot of other listeners, if they have Sonys that were purchased between that time, they notice problems and they're not sure what to do. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of people out there, and I don't know if they're a class action lawsuit, but really what seems to need to apply here is something similar to a lemon law, and I don't think that exists.
Yeah, there's no lemon law for appliances, which a TV is kind of like an appliance or consumer good. But if you can find somebody who wants to bring a class action lawsuit, I don't know exactly how you find somebody like that, but you can go on the internet and look up some different law firms that do those and try to call it to their attention. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's the manufacturer's warranty that controls when you purchase.
Yeah. I mean, they did extend the warranty in some cases. They did that for me initially. I mean, we're talking $1,000 part here that's failing, and
right.
Not just a small little piece. And so I don't know. I mean, to start a class action lawsuit, what would it take financially from my standpoint? Anything?
Well, you got to find somebody who's willing to forward it for you, or you'd have to pay for it. The very basic portion of a class action lawsuit is easy to file. It's just a regular complaint, and then you add a new component asking the court to certify it as a class action lawsuit for anybody else similarly situated. But that opens that up to a little bit of litigation before the court certifies it. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars of attorney time to get past that at the minimum.
Yeah, okay.
Against a very large corporation that has a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. And there's, I mean, even though there's, TVs are.
And Gary, let me remind listeners, because I hear people all the time. Oh, you lawyers, and your class action lawsuits, and you're suing this guy and you're suing this guy. Well, without the class action lawsuit, how's a guy like you going to have a chance against a guy like Sony? You need to be able to bundle together hundreds or even thousands or millions of people who have $1,000 or less claims, and that's the only way you can effectively reach them. You just got to find a lawyer or a law firm who does those and who's interested in that particular claim.
And so once it's all said and done, let's say that was pursued and there was some financial reimbursement. Let's just use $3,000 an example as my purchase price.
Right.
How much realistically could be recovered? I mean, let's just say if,
Well, there are class action lawsuits that end up being funded with tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars, or even we've seen some over the years with billions of dollars. And then each individual member of the class gets usually enough money to make it worth their while. Other times, you end up with a settlement, and it's only worth $10 for each member of the class. And to me, that never makes sense.
Right. So, okay. Well, I just wondered if there was another trick in the book, but that's kind of what I expected, a class action lawsuit. So
yeah.
That's probably.
All right. Yeah, you can always bring your own lawsuit too. Just sue Sony at the courthouse, get them served, and see what happens from there.
Mm-hmm. So would that start at district justice or for the?
I would go right to common pleas, although you could sue them at district justice.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much.
Let's see here. I got somebody with no name. Let's see. No name. How about Jeff? 540-0580. Jeff.
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah.
Hey, got a question. Reader's Digest version on unsecured debt. Went through a divorce years ago and have to pay a sizable amount of alimony. Probably 2 years ago, lost employment, downsized for about almost a year. Got back on my feet and looking at a lot of unsecured debt. And I'm getting barraged with these people on reduce your credit card debt, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to know if there's anything to be done with that, or can you do that, or what's the ramifications of that?
Well, a lot of these offers to reduce your debt have to do with somebody who's going to try to, quote, negotiate it down for you, or somehow figure out how to consolidate it.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people have mixed results with those programs. I usually recommend people go straight to see the bankruptcy attorney and make an honest determination about your ability to pay down and how likely you are to actually be able to succeed.
Well, does that matter? Because in this divorce, I had to file bankruptcy to settle up a fair amount of everything as part of the divorce. So I've been there in 2002.
Okay, so you might be you might be 7 years. I don't know what the time limit on a second bankruptcy is, 7 or 10 years. So I don't know the answer to that, but I guess I would tell you is best you can do is see what they have to offer. The problem I have is I've had people send money into these places, send a couple $1,000s in, and they're going to get you into a plan or they're going to do something, and then they show up and they end up having to go bankrupt anyhow because it doesn't really fundamentally change anything.
Well, see, the issue I have is right now because I've called one or two of them, and I'm struggling, but I'm current on everything. I'm not behind on anything.
Gotcha.
So the minute I tell them that, it's like, well, I don't want to talk to you. And it's not that I don't want to pay the debt, but
what they're looking for is somebody who's way behind, so they can go to the card company and say, listen, how about we close the account and this guy pays you 80% of what's owed or 60% of what's owed, and here's the payment arrangement.
Okay.
So you're in that position where you haven't fallen behind, so you don't have anything to offer.
Right. And I just don't want to take the risk of stop paying to go create a worse problem.
Right. Right. So I don't know what to tell you to do except either figure out how to get more income or figure out how to get rid of some of that, if there's a way to consolidate it perhaps to make your to amortize it over a longer period of time to make your monthly payment lower.
Right.
Those are a couple different options.
Okay.
I think I got to go to – do I have to go to break here, Shane? Okay, Shane's nodding and saying I got to go to break.
Thanks.
540-0580. Hey, welcome back. 540-0580, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here, show's Weekend Appointment, show where we answer your legal questions. Don't forget, if you're a new listener and you don't know this, if you go to weekendappointment.com, become a registered user, you can get this, a free will. I just did one again the other day for somebody. You download the kit, you fill it out, you send it in, you come meet with me, we go over everything, we put the will together, and it's a will, just for you, done for you. You can do it for your wife, we can do it for your husband, can do it for both of you. So go to weekendappointment.com, register as a user, and claim your free will in the registered users area, and that will allow you to get a will for nothing, which means there's no reason not to have one. And trust me, you'll do yourself a big favor if you have a will. Well, it's not a big favor for yourself because when you die, but it's a big favor for somebody, and that's the people you leave behind. Remember that. Ken, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, Carl, how you doing today?
Good, man. What's going on?
Good. Hey, I ran into a friend the other day, and he was telling me back a few weeks ago he got a citation for an illegal turn. He got caught on a camera where they took, a picture of his license plate.
Okay.
Now, about 10 years ago, I was on vacation in Hawaii, and they had a judge over there that they had the same situation, and he threw all these cases out. And his ruling was, in essence, what the police did was ticket a car that they couldn't verify who the driver was, and it flew, and he threw them all out. Do you know if anything like that's ever been tried around here?
I don't know if it's been tried around here, but I know there's a guy who claims, and he's on the internet, he claims to have beat 47 traffic cam tickets because he wears a bunny suit with a giant bunny head on it, and so you can't identify the driver of his vehicle. And so, yeah, it is a viable defense because the government has to prove two things. They have to prove that the vehicle that the violation occurred, and also who the person who did the violation was. So, yeah, it is a viable defense.
His ruling was that they ticketed a car.
Right.
No doubt that the car did it, but they don't know who was driving the car.
We'll give you an example. You're not guilty of speeding if I speed in your car and you didn't know I was going to do it. Right? I borrow your car.
Right.
Drive 85 miles an hour. Not your problem. My problem. Right. Now, if I told you I was going to drive 85 miles an hour and I'd like to borrow your car to do it, you might be an accessory to the crime. But that the government would be hard pressed to show unless you did something stupid like talk to the police and tell them, I knew my friend was going to be speeding. He told me he needed the car and he was going to drive at 100 miles an hour. So, yeah, I think it's winnable. Now, here's the other problem, right? Most of the time, then you got to take a hearing, which means you got to go somewhere to take the hearing. And so if you're caught on a traffic cam, say, in Philadelphia, and you live in Harrisburg, it might not be worth your while to drive all the way out there.
Well, I'm hearing about these cases where people are getting tickets and they weren't even in the municipality or even the wherever.
Right.
And there's also these cases where these companies are giving municipalities these cameras and stuff, and they're getting kickbacks, and it's just a cash cow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
No, I was just wondering if that defense was ever tried. And
it is a viable defense, yes, absolutely viable. In fact, we win speeding tickets sometimes when there's two police officers involved and only one of them shows up, because I'll give you an example. The first officer ran the speed timing device and the other one pulls the car over. One guy can establish who the driver was and the other guy can establish the violation, but neither one, without the use of hearsay, can establish both. So,
interesting.
Same way you'd beat the traffic cam.
All right.
All right, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. But make sure you go to weekendappointment.com and register. Get your free will, Ed.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Or I mean Ken. Oops. Ed, you're on WHP 580, 540-0580.
How you doing, Carl? I got a question about identity theft and scams.
Gotcha.
I just had a grandparent contact me a few days ago because they were a victim of I'm in a different state and I had a car accident and I needed to send money scam.
Huh.
and I already had them. Excuse me. I already had them take all the steps. They went and filed a police report, everything like that. They're not in Pennsylvania, so I have to do it in their state. But they claim to be using. The person claimed to be me.
Right.
Now, does that mean that my identity was compromised, or is this just a random scam?
Well, and that's interesting. Well, how would they know who your grandparents were?
I don't know. I mean, I'm at least semi-familiar with scams. You know, I've read about them on the internet, and I consider myself savvy enough never to be taken in by them.
Yeah, and here's the question. Now, your grandparents might have been scammed, and may have even given up the information themselves. And so, you know, some nice guy calls on day one, and he says, you know, I'm doing a survey for the National Association of the Potted Plant, and I was just curious, you know, do you garden? Do you like to garden? How many members in your family? Oh, do you have any grandkids? Yes, I do. You know, and the next thing you know, they may be divulging information. Then you just keep that information. You call back a few days later, and you feed it back to the person as, hey, this is Ed. Grandma, I need money. Here's what happened. Or this is the tow truck driver, and your grandson was in an accident, and he needs money. Can you Western Union it? So it's possible they may have ferreted that information about who you were, at least enough information about who you were, out of the actual victim ahead of time, and they didn't realize it. However, on the other hand, somebody might have actually got enough information and data on you to figure out who your relatives are. But it's not like it's on your driver's license, or it's not like by knowing your Social Security number, I'm going to be able to figure out who all your relatives are, easily anyhow. So I would suspect the victims gave up the information. You should ask them if they talked or might have told anybody about the family or anything recently.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. I was just curious if I need to, contact them.
You might want to keep watching your credit and check things out, though, because obviously we don't know how they got that information. But I think most likely they got it from the victim ahead of time.
Okay.
All right, Ed. Good luck with it.
All right. Thank you.
540-0580. I'll see you after the break. 540-0580. 540-0580. Call us, 540-0580.
He's a lyrical poet, ladies and gentlemen.
Weekend Appointment, show where I answer your legal questions. My name's Carl Rominger, and I am an attorney here in the Mid-State, so here's your chance to get your question answered for free, or at least get you pointed in the right direction. And, of course, throughout the week, you go to weekendappointment.com, become a registered user. That way we can offer you the free will, lots of other goodies, and you can also see some of the photos and other things that we post on the site. And I want to let people know big things coming. We got a major overhaul on Weekend Appointment coming up here. We're going to do 540-0580, in case you didn't write that number down, by the way. What we're going to do is rebuild the site with a new bulletin board update that's going to allow us to keep some of the great features we have, but add a lot more information, make it a little more user-friendly. We've had a few people we're almost up to 1,000 members here, we're over 943 members. So if you're not a member, 943 other people did it. So why don't you get on board and join on? Because it's going to have a major overhaul coming here in the next month or so, and we're going to fill it up with information. We're going to make it so that you can keep your own blogs on there if you want. All kinds of neat stuff coming. So go to weekendappointment.com, get registered now, get familiar with how the site works a little bit, and see what you want to post on there. And as always, I've got people who are commenting back and forth. So sometimes, even if I haven't got around to answering somebody's question, somebody else has been able to offer some helpful advice on how they handled a tenant or a landlord or a spouse. David, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. Dave Boyce here. I got a question on. I'm thinking of a small business, and I don't know whether it should be an S Corp or a LLC. And if I do that type of thing, what if I do something like where you get this stuff off the internet and create your own S Corp or LLC?
Well, here, I love that stuff on the internet. It works great, except for one problem. It doesn't really tell you if you need it or not.
Okay.
And that's the problem with doing it. Usually, I had a guy in the other, and maybe I've told this story before, but I had a guy in a few weeks ago, and he says, I'm really thinking I need an LLC, or I need this, I need that. And after we were all done, we're like, you can stay as a sole proprietorship right now. You might want to go LLC down the road. and here's why. But here's the big thing. Once you create a separate business entity, you create a whole new set of regulatory bodies you have to deal with. You create a whole new set of tax filings you have to make, a whole new series of accountings you have to watch. And so I'll give you a good example. Let's say you have a retail shop, and you're worried that somebody's going to come in, slip, fall, and die, and you're going to lose everything you own. Well, if the building has a mortgage on it, and the what else we got here? Well, we got a building with a mortgage on it. Your inventory's leveraged, and you got good insurance, like $1 million slip and fall policy, general business liability. Nobody's ever going to reach you as an individual anyhow.
Okay.
And then you can get yourself your own personal umbrella insurance.
Okay.
And that's all going to be cheaper than incorporating it or LLCing it in the long run.
Okay. Well, that sort of sets me in the right direction, and I appreciate it.
So what I tell you to do is sit down with a real live lawyer or business advisor and or CPA, and let them help you make those choices rationally.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going next. And I thought maybe I might do it myself, but after talking to you, I think I'll go get some help.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do on your own. It's just a question of whether it's a great idea or not. You can go online. You can find all kinds of helpful tools. You can come up with all kinds of great ideas. The problem is it really necessary? And then what are the consequences when you do? Bruce, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Good.
Good. Hey, I had a question. I'm a big supporter of our military, especially the Pennsylvania National Guard.
Uh-huh.
Pennsylvania some time ago received $350 million from the federal government to upgrade our depots and so on and so forth. And I went looking for some of that money, and I contacted a state representative, and they can't find it, nor, I guess, are they allowed to even look. I talked to the state attorney general and the state auditor general, and it seems our law says that they don't even have the power to go looking for that money unless the governor tells them they can do so. But if I read in the Constitution, it says our state legislature is responsible for doling out the money to the Guard. Now, my question is, how can this all be?
So you're saying that the federal government gave a bunch of money to the state to use for the
$50 million, yes, sir.
and
been confirmed.
And nobody knows where it went.
Nope, the state legislator. I went to my state representative, and he asked, and he couldn't find it, and I believed him, so I wrote a letter to the auditor general and to the state attorney general, and both of them said, according to our laws in the state of in Pennsylvania, they don't have the right to even go looking for that money or asking about it without the governor giving
I have no idea what to do in that situation, but I'm gonna tell you who I want you to call. I want you to call back during the Bob Durgan show and get Bob Durgan on it.
I did, but the state auditor general was on Bob's show when I called.
What did he say?
And the auditor general said that's the way the law is. If the governor.
Well, you got the answer then. So somebody got to get after the governor.
But I'm trying to, and he wrote me a letter back and said, go file a Freedom of Information request.
Try that and see what happens.
Yeah, well, there's 85 projects. You know how much money and time that would take?
Right.
A private citizen to do all that?
Right.
But my question is, if the Constitution, state Constitution, says the legislators are responsible for doling out the money for the Guard,
right?
How can the governor then, I'm looking to see the chain of command in this and see where it's in paper. How can the governor accept that money, dole it out, and he's not responsible to be audited by anyone?
I don't know. That off the top of my head, I couldn't answer a question like that. That's something that would require a little research. You get into state constitutional law there, my friend.
Okay.
All right. Post it on weekendappointment.com. Maybe I can do a little research online for you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see here. Debbie, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Debbie.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's going on?
Hey, I have a question for you. About 15 years or so ago, I got divorced, and I went to my attorney, and he drew up papers conditional on the divorce that my husband pay 50% of my children's college.
Right.
Well, you know where I'm going with that. He didn't pay a nickel, and in the meantime, he claims if I try to file any kind of an action against him, he'll file bankruptcy. And I went back to my attorney, and my attorney said, that's right, he can do that. Why didn't I get better advice from an attorney, or do I have a recourse now? Well,
we two things. We need to see the exact agreement that you signed. Number two is, it could have had language in it talking about certain things surviving bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court doesn't have to automatically let him out of that debt either. So we'd have to have an honest evaluation of his financial picture and his ability to pay. Mm-hmm. So it's not as simple as he could file bankruptcy, but he might. But off the top of my head, I don't know enough about the situation and the exact language you have in your agreement to see how that might work.
Right. Well, the agreement just said, he will pay 50% of my children's college education.
Right.
It was just one line. You will pay 50% of the kid's education. So I let him go out of the divorce, with no alimony, no nothing.
And was that right? Interesting. And was that divorce done in Pennsylvania?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Would I have any kind of a cause of action for malpractice?
You may have a cause of action for malpractice, and you have 2 years from when you realize you were harmed.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
That's over. That's over.
Because he refused to pay more than 2 years ago?
Pardon me?
He refused to pay more than 2 years ago?
Yeah, I put myself in debt, credit cards and loans and everything, and God bless me, I got my son through college, but, it just breaks my heart to think that Here comes the music, Debbie. I got to let you go. Okay.
Folks, weekendappointment.com is where I need you to go. In the meantime, go to weekendappointment.com, become a registered user, post your questions there. Dave, I'm not going to get you today, and I apologize for that. I'll be back next Saturday at 2 o'clock, as always. And remember, post your questions on weekendappointment.com. If you need me in my law office, if you need a lawyer to consult or help, go to Weekend Appointment. You can get my contact information there.